I lost my life partner. How do I go on alone? You see, when someone loses a partner after decades together, the world doesn't just lose a person, it loses a rhythm. There's a certain cadence, a familiar flow to everyday life that's built over time. It's the shared grocery trips, the silly arguments about which TV show to watch, the way one person always forgets their keys and the other always remembers. When that rhythm stops, it's not just quiet. It's disorienting. And it sneaks up in small ways, doesn't it? The sound of a spoon stirring just one cup of coffee. The sight of only one toothbrush in the holder. The way the evening news suddenly feels unbearable to watch alone. It's not the grand gestures we miss the most. It's the tiny, invisible threads that held the fabric of everyday life together. And when those threads break, it's like standing in a house that still looks the same, but no longer feels like home. That's the thing about grief. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come in waves of tears. Sometimes, it's just that quiet ache that follows you into every room. And for older adults, this grief is often compounded by something deeper, a fear that this loneliness might now be permanent. Because let's be honest, society doesn't talk much about love and connection in later life. And even less about loss. There's this unspoken assumption that by a certain age, people are just supposed to accept it. But the heart doesn't work that way. Time doesn't always make things easier. Sometimes, it just makes the silence more noticeable. Now here's something that isn't talked about enough. Losing a life partner can also mean losing your identity. When a couple has shared decades together, their lives become so intertwined that it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. Roles get blurred. One may handle the bills, the other the cooking. One may keep the family calendar, the other fix the leaky faucet. So when one is gone, the other is not only grieving a person, they're also trying to figure out, who am I now without them? And that question? It's hard. It's heavy. But it's also the beginning of something important. Because even though the life once known has changed forever, it doesn't mean life itself has to stop. The silence may still be there, but it doesn't have to be empty. Healing doesn't come in big, dramatic changes. For many, it starts in small, almost invisible ways. Getting out of bed before noon for the first time in a week. Making dinner instead of just eating something frozen. Saying yes to an invite even when it feels easier to stay home. Each of those steps might seem tiny from the outside, but on the inside, they are monumental. They say, I'm still here. I'm still trying. I'm still choosing to live, even when it hurts. And maybe that's what this part of life is really about. Not replacing what was lost. Not pretending everything's okay. But gently, slowly, learning how to carry love and grief together. Learning how to sit with the memories and also make room for new ones, however unexpected they may be. So if today feels especially heavy, just know this, you're not alone in feeling alone. And even in this chapter, this quiet, unfamiliar, sometimes unbearable chapter, connection is still possible. And that's what this conversation is all about. But what does being strong even mean in this context? Because let's be real, strength isn't about pretending you're okay. It's not about putting on a brave face when your chest is tight and your house feels too quiet. For many older adults, being strong starts to feel like code for suffering in silence. And that silence? It can be crushing. You see, when researchers call loneliness an epidemic, they are not being dramatic. The science is there. Chronic loneliness, especially after a major loss, actually rewires the brain. It messes with sleep patterns. It raises stress hormones like cortisol, which puts extra strain on the heart. It can even weaken the immune system, making people more susceptible to illness. And here's the cruel irony: just when someone needs support the most, their social world often shrinks. Friends don't know what to say. Adult children have their own lives. And the invitations? They stop coming. Suddenly, everyday things like going to the grocery store or sitting in a restaurant feel like reminders that you're now table for one. And no one tells you how to navigate that, right? No one explains how loss can blur the line between solitude and isolation. That what starts as a few days of rest can quietly stretch into weeks without meaningful human contact. And by the time someone realizes they are truly lonely, not just grieving, but disconnected, it can feel like it's already too late. But let's pause here for a moment, because this is important. Loneliness isn't a character flaw. It's not a personal failure. It's a human condition. And in older adults, it's often the result of a perfect storm of life changes: retirement, mobility issues, loss of close friends, adult children living far away, and yes, bereavement. Any one of those things can be tough. But stacked together, it's overwhelming. Now, here's something not many people know: the health impact of loneliness has actually been compared to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Think about that. Something as invisible as disconnection can be just as harmful as something we've long known to be deadly. And yet, when we talk about senior health, how often do we focus on loneliness? We talk about blood pressure, about fall prevention, about diet and cholesterol. But what about connection? What about the ache that comes from feeling unseen, unheard, or forgotten? It's no wonder some older adults describe their days like this: "I feel like I've disappeared, but I'm still here." That statement, simple as it is, captures the kind of grief we don't often acknowledge: the grief of being alive, but no longer feeling part of life. So when we say loneliness is an epidemic, we don't just mean it's widespread. We mean it's dangerous. And far too often, it goes untreated. But it doesn't have to stay that way. Because awareness is the first step. And if you're listening to this right now, whether for yourself or someone you love, it means you've already taken that first step. And that's a big deal. It's not just about feeling sad, right? We all know that grief can make your heart heavy. But for older adults, the truth is a lot deeper and more physical than many realize. When a spouse dies, the brain doesn't just experience emotional pain, it undergoes a kind of neurological shake-up. It's like the brain is trying to find a new balance, a new normal, after the loss of someone who was a central part of everyday life. Think about it like this: when you lose a partner, your brain is essentially dealing with trauma. Not just the heartache, but the complete rewiring of a routine, a lifestyle, a way of thinking. Neuroscientists have found that in older widows and widowers, the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain tied to emotional pain, shows prolonged activity. That means the brain is actively processing the pain. It's trying to figure out how to manage something it's never had to cope with before. But here's where it gets even more interesting: that emotional pain doesn't stay in one area. Grief spreads. Chronic grief actually disrupts something called the default mode network. Now, I know that sounds technical, but stay with me. The default mode network is responsible for things like memory, concentration, and sleep regulation. So when grief drags on for months, or even years, that network gets scrambled. It's like your brain's GPS system is out of whack. Things that used to come easily, like remembering where you put your keys or focusing on a conversation, suddenly become harder to do. And let's talk about sleep. Losing a partner isn't just about the tears at night. It's about the lack of rest. When the brain is in constant stress mode, it becomes much harder to get those deep, restorative hours of sleep. And as we all know, sleep is everything. Without it, the emotional fog grows thicker, and the stress feels heavier. But what really catches people by surprise is how this grief affects the immune system. When you're in mourning, your body isn't just emotionally drained, it's physically depleted too. The stress hormones like cortisol run rampant, which weakens the immune response. That means older adults who are grieving are at a higher risk for illness, whether it's a cold, a flu, or even more serious conditions like heart disease. So, no wonder it feels like you're walking through life with a foggy mind. It's not just in your head, it's real, and it's happening in your brain. And yet, this is a part of grief that isn't talked about nearly enough. So many people go through the stages of mourning without understanding why they feel so out of it, why they can't remember where they put their glasses, or why they can't focus on the book they've been trying to read for weeks. Here's something that's often overlooked: there's no time limit on grief. The brain doesn't simply bounce back after a loss. The recovery isn't linear. It takes time, sometimes a lot of time, for the brain to heal. That's why it's so important to be kind to yourself. It's okay if you're not functioning like you did before. It's okay if your mind isn't as sharp as it once was. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means your brain is doing exactly what it needs to do, processing, adapting, and slowly working toward a new normal. And here's the good news: understanding this process can make all the difference. Once you realize that the fog isn't some personal flaw, it's a biological response to loss, it can lift a bit of the weight off your shoulders. You don't have to feel guilty for not bouncing back right away. You're not broken. You're just healing, at your own pace. And remember, this fog? It won't last forever. With time, support, and self-compassion, that cloud will start to lift. You'll get back to remembering where you left your keys. Your mind will sharpen. Your sleep will improve. But the first step is realizing that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to take things slow. Your brain is working hard right now, and that's something to honor, not feel guilty about. If there's one thing these stories have in common, it's this: healing doesn't come from forgetting. It doesn't mean that the pain of loss goes away, or that the empty spaces in your life suddenly fill up. What it means is finding new ways to connect, to breathe life back into the moments that feel lifeless. Take Helen from Pennsylvania, for example. At 81, after losing her husband of 56 years, the house felt colder. The simple things that once brought her joy, like playing the piano, stopped. She even stopped opening the curtains. Imagine that. The whole world outside, just waiting to be seen, but the weight of grief keeping the blinds drawn. Helen could have stayed in that space forever. It's easy to see how someone might. But her turning point came in an unexpected way: a neighbor inviting her to volunteer reading stories to first graders. At first, Helen thought there was nothing she could give. She felt empty, as if the best parts of her had been taken along with Bill. But here's what she found: those kids lit something in her. Their laughter, their innocence, their joy. It gave her a reason to smile again. Not every day, but enough to remember who she was before the grief took over. And that's the magic, right? Healing doesn't mean turning back the clock. It means starting to live again, little by little. Then there's George from Oregon. After his wife passed, he didn't leave the house for 4 months. Can you imagine that kind of isolation? The silence, the emptiness, the haunting reminder of what used to be. George was a man who had spent years traveling and enjoying life with his partner. Suddenly, everything came to a halt. But sometimes, the first step doesn't come from big, dramatic decisions. It comes from something simple, something like joining a men's grief group, not because you want to talk about your feelings, but because they play chess. Now, chess might seem like a small thing in the grand scheme of life's struggles, but for George, it was enough. Just showing up, being there with others, even in quiet moments, helped him take the first steps toward healing. It wasn't the conversation that mattered as much as the connection. And that's so often the case with grief. Sometimes just being present, even in silence, is a healing force. And then we have Lean from California. Lean's story is especially poignant because she didn't just lose her husband, she felt like she lost her language, too. She and her husband had immigrated together from Vietnam, and after his passing, it felt like the very words she used to communicate with the world disappeared. Can you imagine losing not just a partner, but the very thing that allowed you to connect with others? The weight of that must have been indescribable. But Lean found something profound in a community Tai Chi class. At first, it wasn't about talking or sharing grief, it was about movement. The flow of her body, the slow, purposeful movements in the Tai Chi practice, helped her reconnect with herself. The physical activity gave her a sense of grounding, something to hold onto. And, just like that, she found other widows like her. The simple act of moving helped her heal in ways words couldn't. Sometimes, the body needs to move before the heart can catch up. And by showing up, by making the effort to be part of something, she slowly started to rebuild her sense of connection and purpose. What these stories share, more than anything else, is a willingness to try. It wasn't easy for any of them, but they each found their own path to healing by starting small. They didn't wait for life to magically fix itself, they took tiny steps toward reconnecting with the world around them. And that's something we all can learn from. Sometimes, the first step toward breaking free from loneliness isn't about fixing everything at once. It's about showing up. It's about doing something, no matter how small, that brings a spark of light back into your life. Whether it's volunteering, playing a game of chess, or simply moving your body, those actions are the foundation of healing. They don't take away the pain, but they make the burden just a little bit easier to carry. It's incredible how the brain, even as we grow older, still holds the ability to heal. This is thanks to a process called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections and pathways. And this isn't just some abstract theory. Research has shown that even after deep loss, older adults can rebuild, reconnect, and find joy again, bit by bit. It's not about erasing the grief, it's about learning how to live with it, how to heal through it, and ultimately, how to grow stronger. One of the first steps in this healing process is routine. I know it can feel like the world has turned upside down, and the last thing you might want to do is get out of bed, let alone follow any sort of schedule. But the truth is, having a gentle daily routine can be incredibly stabilizing for the brain. It's not about being rigid or forcing yourself into a perfect routine, it's just about having a little consistency. Getting up at the same time, having meals at regular intervals, taking a walk at the same time each day, these small actions can help keep your brain chemistry in balance. A regular rhythm reduces the emotional overload that can come from grief, and it helps ground you, even on the toughest days. Then there's meaningful interaction. This doesn't mean you need to become a social butterfly or suddenly host dinner parties. No, it can be something as simple as chatting with a barista at your local coffee shop or exchanging a smile with a neighbor. The power of these small, low-pressure interactions is incredible. Studies show that just talking with others, even strangers, can release dopamine and oxytocin, the chemicals in the brain that help foster a sense of connection and well-being. It's like these tiny moments of human contact are little sparks that light up the dark corners of your mind. And the best part? They don't require much effort at all. But sometimes, words just don't cut it, right? Grief is so deep, so complex, it can feel like there are no words big enough to capture it. That's where creative expression comes in. Whether it's through art, journaling, music, or even something like gardening, creative outlets give your brain a way to process emotions that words can't always reach. In grief therapy, a common practice is writing letters to a lost loved one. It might sound strange, but putting your feelings down on paper, whether you ever send a letter or not, can be incredibly healing. It allows you to express the grief in a tangible way, and that act of expression can release a lot of pent-up emotion, even when it feels like there's no one to talk to. And let's not forget about volunteering. This is something that, at first, might feel impossible when you're deep in the sorrow of loss. But research has shown that altruistic activities helping others, even in small ways, can significantly decrease feelings of depression. There's something magical about giving. When you volunteer, whether it's reading to children, helping at a food bank, or just offering a kind word to a neighbor, you begin to reignite a sense of purpose. You're reminded that you still have value to offer the world. And in turn, that sense of purpose can be a lifeline during the darkest days of grief. It's not just about feeling better, it's about knowing you're still needed, that your presence still matters. All of these steps, whether it's sticking to a routine, interacting with others, getting creative, or giving back, are rooted in the science of connection. Our brains are wired for it. The bonds we form with others, whether through conversation, art, or service, release chemicals that help our brains heal. The process is gradual, yes. It's not about rushing through the grief or pretending it doesn't hurt. But little by little, these connections start to rebuild the bridges that grief tries to destroy. The heart may never be the same after loss, but that doesn't mean it can't heal. With time, with gentle care, and with a willingness to engage with the world again, you can begin to reclaim parts of yourself that grief has taken away. It won't be the same, but it will be enough. And that's the beauty of healing. You don't have to be whole again to find happiness. You just have to keep taking those small steps forward, and the heart, like the brain, will find its way back to connection. Let's dive into some of the myths that often keep people feeling stuck in isolation after a loss, and talk about how we can challenge them. If I'm still sad, it means I haven't moved on. This is probably one of the most common myths, and it's not true at all. Grief doesn't come with a set expiration date. Just because you're still sad, doesn't mean you're not healing. Sadness can exist right alongside moments of joy. You might find yourself laughing at something, only to feel a wave of sadness immediately afterward. That's normal. Healing doesn't mean wiping away the sadness or forgetting the person you lost. It's about learning how to live alongside the grief while still finding moments of happiness. The journey is messy, and that's okay. It's all part of the process. I'm too old to start something new. There's this idea that after a certain age, it's too late to try new things. But let me tell you, neuroplasticity doesn't stop at 60, 70, or even 90. The brain can still form new connections, create new memories, and learn new skills at any age. Sure, it might take a little more time or effort, but that's part of the beauty of growing older. You don't have to be confined by the limits you might think come with age. Whether it's picking up a hobby you've always been curious about, learning a new language, or starting a project you've always dreamed of, it's never too late to start. The brain just needs nurturing, and you can give it that, no matter your age. No one understands what I'm going through. Yes, your grief is deeply personal and unique to you. But here's something I've learned: community is built on shared experiences. While no one will ever fully understand your specific journey, there are many others who have felt the loss, the heartache, and the loneliness. By connecting with others, even if their grief looks different than yours, you'll find comfort in knowing you're not alone in your pain. Sometimes, just hearing someone else's story can remind you that you're not the only one facing this. That shared empathy, the understanding that we're all in this together, is what helps form connections that can guide you through the darkest times. Now that we've debunked some of these myths, let's get practical about what can actually help. Grief is hard, and there's no magic fix. But there are small, gentle steps you can take to begin walking through the grief, one step at a time. It's not about rushing the process, it's about taking care of yourself while you're in it. 1. Write a memory journal. Start with just a few lines each day about your life together. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is about honoring the memories and reflecting on the good times. Writing can be a cathartic way to express what's hard to say out loud. Plus, it helps create a lasting record of those special moments, a reminder that the love you shared was real and meaningful. 2. Join a walking group. It's so easy to fall into the trap of staying inside, curled up with the grief. But fresh air and gentle movement like walking are natural mood boosters. Walking doesn't require a lot of energy, and it gets you out of the house, which can be an important step in breaking the cycle of isolation. Plus, walking groups often come with built-in community. Even if you don't talk much, just being around others in a supportive, low-pressure environment can be incredibly healing. 3. Visit the local library or senior center. It sounds simple, but the local library or senior center is a treasure trove of free programs. They might offer workshops, classes, or activities that could get you out of the house and engaged in something new. These places often fly under the radar, but they are filled with opportunities to meet others, learn something new, and have some fun. 4. Talk to a therapist. Grief counselors who specialize in helping older adults can be a game changer. Grief is complicated, and having someone trained to help you work through it can bring immense relief. Sometimes, it's just about having someone listen, someone who can help you understand what you're going through and offer strategies for coping. Therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart, it's for when you're looking to rebuild, and having professional guidance can make a huge difference. 5. Volunteer for something small. Volunteering, even for something small like folding newsletters at a community center or helping at a local food bank, can help you feel a sense of purpose again. Giving back can remind you that you still have something valuable to offer. And doing something for others can shift the focus away from your own pain, even if just for a little while. 6. Try something new once a month. Grief can make you feel like you're stuck in a rut. But you don't have to stay stuck. Trying something new, even something small like going to a new cafe or watching a movie you've never seen, can shake things up and offer a refreshing perspective. The goal isn't to replace what you've lost, but to remind yourself that life still holds new experiences, even after loss. 7. Create a ritual. This can be incredibly personal. Maybe it's lighting a candle at a certain time each day, playing their favorite song, or talking to their photo. These rituals help keep the memory of your loved one alive, and they give you a sense of comfort and connection. It doesn't mean you're stuck in the past, it means you're honoring the past while continuing to live in the present. Grief doesn't disappear, but it does evolve. It's important to remember that these tiny steps aren't about forgetting the person you lost, they're about remembering with strength. It's about carrying that love with you, finding new ways to live with the grief, and slowly, bit by bit, rebuilding your life around it. When we lose a spouse, the idea of opening up to new connections can feel daunting. How can we let someone in when our hearts are still so raw? But what if I told you that building new relationships isn't about replacing the old ones? It's about expanding your circle of support in ways that allow you to continue living, even with the absence of your partner. Let's talk about how to start building those lasting, meaningful connections again. 1. Start small, one step at a time. It's easy to think that to form meaningful connections, you need to dive right into big social events or close relationships. But sometimes, the most important step is just showing up. Whether it's for a quick chat with a neighbor or attending a local class, taking small steps toward re-engaging with the world around you can make a huge difference. The key here is consistency. Keep showing up. You'll be amazed at how the small connections build up over time. 2. Join groups with shared interests. One of the best ways to meet people after a loss is by connecting over a shared activity or interest. You're more likely to form deeper connections when you have a common ground to bond over. This could be anything from a book club, art class, gardening group, or even a cooking class. These environments foster natural conversations and make it easier to connect without the pressure of small talk. Plus, the joy of learning something new alongside others can be both rewarding and therapeutic. 3. Leverage technology to stay connected. In today's digital age, staying connected is easier than ever, even if you don't feel like leaving the house. Video calls, online support groups, or even social media platforms dedicated to seniors can provide an outlet for conversation, support, and new friendships. Sometimes, just checking in on someone else or joining an online community can help you feel part of something bigger. Technology can bring us closer, even when we are physically alone. 4. Rekindle old friendships. After losing a partner, sometimes we retreat so far into ourselves that we lose touch with old friends. If that sounds familiar, it might be time to reach out to people you haven't seen in a while. Old friendships are often the easiest to rekindle because there's a foundation of shared history. You don't need to dive straight into a heavy conversation. Start with a simple "How have you been?" and let the conversation flow naturally. Reconnecting with someone who's known you through different seasons of your life can feel like a breath of fresh air. 5. Volunteer. Giving back builds bridges. Volunteering is an incredibly powerful way to create connections that feel meaningful. When you volunteer, you're not only helping others, you're joining a community of people who share your values and goals. Whether it's at a local food bank, animal shelter, or a hospital, giving back allows you to meet people who are also looking to make a positive difference in the world. Acts of service create a bond that's unique and lasting, and they offer the chance to be part of something greater than yourself. 6. Be open to different types of connections. Sometimes, we limit ourselves to thinking that the only meaningful relationships are romantic or close friendships. But meaningful connections come in many forms. You can form deep and rewarding relationships with neighbors, fellow volunteers, or even people you meet in a class or group. Don't limit your possibilities. There are a wide variety of people out there who can add value to your life in unexpected ways. Let go of the notion that your relationship with your spouse was the only type of meaningful relationship that matters. 7. Practice vulnerability, but at your own pace. Let's be real, being vulnerable after a loss is tough. But it's also essential to forming deep, authentic relationships. Vulnerability doesn't mean pouring out every detail of your grief right away, it just means being open to letting people in. You don't have to share everything all at once, but showing someone a little bit of your heart can lead to deeper and more fulfilling connections. It's all about trusting yourself and others to find that balance between protecting your heart and letting others get close. Building lasting connections after loss isn't easy. It's a gradual process that requires time, patience, and a willingness to step outside of your comfort zone. But the effort is worth it. Each new bond you form will help fill the empty spaces left behind and create a new web of support. These connections won't replace the person you lost, but they will enrich your life and provide new opportunities for growth, joy, and healing. After losing a life partner, it often feels like the weight of grief will never lift. There are days when the pain seems too heavy to bear, when everything feels colorless and the future seems uncertain. But as the old saying goes, the darkest hour is just before the dawn. Rediscovering joy doesn't mean forgetting the person you lost, but rather learning how to find happiness in new ways while honoring the memories. 1. Give yourself permission to enjoy life again. Many people feel guilty about laughing, smiling, or experiencing joy after loss, as though doing so would be betraying their loved one's memory. But here's the truth: joy is not a betrayal. Your spouse would want you to find happiness again. It's important to allow yourself the freedom to enjoy life once more, even if it feels strange at first. Grief and joy can coexist, they don't have to cancel each other out. Embrace the moments of light, no matter how fleeting they may seem. 2. Take up new hobbies or revive old passions. One of the most powerful ways to bring joy back into your life is by rediscovering old hobbies or exploring new interests. If you've always wanted to try painting, hiking, or learning a new instrument, now is the time to dive in. Even something as simple as gardening or birdwatching can bring you a sense of purpose and fulfillment. For some, the act of creating or learning something new brings a sense of pride and accomplishment. It's a beautiful reminder that life continues to offer fresh experiences, even when it feels like things are stuck in the past. 3. Reconnect with nature. Nature has a unique healing power. The sound of birds singing, the sight of flowers blooming, or even just feeling the warmth of the sun on your face can have a profound effect on your well-being. Studies show that spending time outdoors can reduce stress, boost mood, and enhance cognitive function. If you haven't already, consider taking regular walks in the park, hiking in the woods, or just sitting outside and soaking in the beauty of the world around you. Nature doesn't ask for anything from you, it simply offers peace and renewal. 4. Celebrate small wins. In the aftermath of loss, it's easy to overlook the little victories. But those tiny wins, like getting out of bed, taking a shower, or even making it through a tough day, are worth celebrating. Celebrate progress, no matter how small. Healing is a journey, not a race. Each day that you choose to move forward, even if it's just a small step, is a day closer to rediscovering your joy. Acknowledging these moments helps you realize that healing isn't about forgetting, it's about finding strength to live fully again. 5. Create new traditions. While certain traditions may be too painful to keep, creating new ones can be a way to honor your loved one while embracing life. Whether it's cooking a favorite meal on a particular day or lighting a candle in memory of your spouse, rituals provide a sense of continuity and connection. They help you stay grounded while acknowledging the ongoing nature of life. And who knows? You may even find that some new traditions bring unexpected joy into your world, like spending time with family, traveling to a new place, or engaging in an activity that brings you peace. 6. Foster compassionate self-care. Rediscovering joy isn't just about engaging in fun activities, it's also about taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Self-care may look different for each person. For some, it's taking a long, relaxing bath. For others, it could be practicing mindfulness or doing yoga. If you find it hard to take care of yourself during tough times, start small. Try one thing a day that nurtures your body or mind. Whether it's a walk around the block or reading a favorite book, these self-care moments are small acts of love that can lead to lasting joy. 7. Surround yourself with positive, supportive people. Sometimes, it takes a village to help us find our joy again. Surrounding yourself with positive, uplifting people who encourage your healing process can be life-changing. Whether it's family, friends, or a support group, seek out those who genuinely care about your well-being and who remind you that you are worthy of joy. Don't be afraid to lean on others, ask for help, or share your feelings. Isolation can deepen grief, but connection can foster healing. People who truly support you will help you rediscover what brings you joy. Rediscovering joy after loss doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't follow a linear path. Some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. Healing is a gradual process, one step at a time. It's about honoring your grief while allowing yourself to experience the good moments that still exist in life. Little by little, joy will find its way back into your heart. If you're still watching, thank you. That alone is a sign of strength. Every step you take in this journey matters. For more episodes on mental and emotional well-being after 60, make sure to subscribe to Elderly Care. We're here to support you every step of the way. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and take one step forward today. Just one.